Hello, my fellow humans. Not bees. Not these. No. Humans. Human, there's a difference. Yeah. Humans. Today we're going to be talking about the Achaean Aeon. And you're going to enjoy it, whether you like it or not. Well, actually, you're going to have to like it, because if you're enjoying it, you have to like it. So you're going to like it, or rather, if you like it or like it. The Achaean Aeon was in between the Achaean Aeon and the Proterozoic Aeon, and it went from 4 to 2.5 billion years ago, and it contained 4 periods inside of it. A brief overview of what we're going to see in this period. Life emerges. The Great Oxidation Event, not that great, to be honest. Cyanobacteria, or like the first supercontinent, tectonic plates. There's a bunch going on in this period, so let's get Eon. So let's get into it. Yippee! First off, the Eoarchean. It was the first period in the Achaean Aeon, and it may have been the start of life, but though it hasn't been stone hard, this is 100% life until 3.5 billion years ago, and this ended 3.6 billion years ago. So there's an 100% chance, but it is quite possible. And in other news, you want to hear that again? And in other news, yeah, there's not much going on in these early times in Earth's history. Trust me, in total this video is more interesting. It's just, this is why most people make full things of Achaean Aeon and Proterozoic Aeon, because if you're going to make them into the smaller segments, it's going to be like a few sentences. Although there actually is one single other thing of note. The late heavy bombardment ends in the Eoarchean, but yeah, that's not really, no one really cares about that. So, I mean, maybe you do, I don't know. I'm not inside of your brain, but who knows. Next up, in the Paleoarchean, we finally have life. Whoa. Not that life. Yeah, more like that one. There we go. Yeah, basically the first ever life was these things called, well, the first ever life that we know of are these things called cyanobacteria, and they're microscopic organisms that lived like a long time ago, and they actually still live it today. They're still around, they're still alive, which is kind of surprising, and they're old. They're really old. And yeah, that's basically it. They're kind of boring for now, but they'll get more interesting soon, I promise. But wait, there's more, because at the same time in this eon, there's also the first continent. Yep, it's called Valbera, and it's basically like southeastern Africa and northwestern Australia that kind of just merged together into one smaller continent, mini continent thingy. But it's the first ever landmass, so give it up for Valbera. There's nothing in Valbera because there's life, but there's no animals, because life, it doesn't automatically mean animals. It's a long story. I'll get to that later in the next episode. And there's no plants, so it's kind of just a giant desert just sitting there. But cyanobacteria is kind of clinging to the shores of it because they like that. The shores are nice. They can't really go on land, but they go through the riverways and all through there. And they're also the first ever animal to photosynthesize, so that's cool. And that will also pose a problem at the end of the episode. I know, I just realized that I keep calling cyanobacteria animals. They're not, but I called them that in 3 separate clips, and I don't feel like refilming like a minute and a half of video, so I'm just gonna keep it like that. But just remember, if I ever call an animal again by accident, or for all of those incidents that I just did, it's not an animal. Cyanobacteria is not an animal. I just want to get that out of the way. Next up, the Achaean, which is basically just known for the emergence of tectonic plates and the beginning of the end for the cyanobacterian empire. Well, they still are around, but they're not as prominent after this. And the reason why is so they produce oxygen as a byproduct because they consume carbon dioxide. But the problem is if you're just letting out oxygen, which is toxic to yourself, and there's nothing to consume that oxygen and put out CO2, you're just building up a toxic gas. That's like being locked in a room and just breathing in all the oxygen and breathing out all the CO2, but you can't take in the CO2, so you're just gonna suffocate yourself. But that isn't the whole problem, because oxygen also has a cooling effect, which causes glaciers, which will end up causing glaciers at the poles, and not quite yet, but it will eventually begin to cool the Earth a lot at the end of the eon. And this is not going to be good for life. So it's not looking too good right now. And if nothing changes quickly, it's not going to end well. Another thing that's happening because of the beginning of the Great Oxidation Event is the waters are turning kind of a reddish, have like a reddish tint to it, because there's iron in the water that's soaking up all the oxygen and sinking to the bottom of the ocean and releasing a reddish rust color because it oxygenated, it's rusting. And that kind of helps stop the oxygen being pushed out for a little tiny bit, but not long at all. And that kind of, and then after all the iron consumed all the oxygen it could and sank to the bottom of the ocean, then the oxygen just continues to keep building as it was before. The Great Oxidation Event began, and it started off slowly with a few bacteria and archaea beginning to die, but then it got worse and worse and worse, and until it became really, really bad, and most life was at this point, but it's not over yet, because the life that was hanging on by a thread basically just gave up after the first Nobel Earth. Yes, it's the first. There's going to be a second. And look at that. Look at what the Earth looks like. It's completely frozen over. It looks like Hoth. And so it's not looking too well for life right now. But a little bit of life, not that much, a little tiny bit is able to survive in volcanoes and like geologic hotspots. And that life will eventually become you. So ain't that cool? So I'm going to end this episode with life on the brink of death, but not all hope is lost. Throughout the brief time of Earth we've seen, it's gone from Mustafar to Camino to Hoth, but life just keeps on trying to move forward, and it is going to make it through this, and it is eventually going to become me and you. And isn't that kind of cool? And with that, I'll see you next time. Have a great day, and goodbye, my fellow humans. Remember, like what I said earlier in the beginning of the video, not bees. We are not bees. Humans. Humans, not bees. Peace.